Yo. What's going on, y'all? Good to see you. Oh, excuse me. Hope you guys are doing well, staying safe. And as always, thanks for dropping on by. It is another Wednesday night, so I know what that means. We are doing some more Fantasy Haus Live. Let me turn down the music a hair. There we go, so it doesn't look like I quite have to fight it as much. I feel like I go through the same dilemma literally every time I start. But anyways, how we doing, guys? Good to see you. Much love. Thanks for stopping on in. So, as you might have guessed, they're probably stopping on here for, we are going to go over all of the action from the latest week of our Fantasy Football League here in the Hooligan House. It was a pretty interesting week. I think, let's see. I think when I did all my picks last week, I think I went like 3 and like 10, so just terrible. It's absolutely terrible week for picks, but that means there was a lot of upsets and a lot of just fun all around. So, as per usual, we're going to start with the review, or the week 6 review, I believe, and then jump into the updated power rankings, and then once again, take a look at the preview for week 7, I believe, or is it week 8? Oh shit, I don't even remember. What week is this? This is week 7, my bad. So it'll be review for week 7. And then updated power rankings as of week 8. No, week 7, and then week 8 preview. And then to wrap up, just like we've been doing, we'll take another stab at, making some picks for the rest of the NFL. Not for the NFL schedule, but for just this week. Hopefully we can redeem ourselves, because last week was kind of terrible. But anyways, let's get to it, eh? Also, Bucks home opener tomorrow. Let's get it. Their season opener tomorrow. Dame time, son. But, alright. So, actually, not as. Let's switch her on over. Boom. 2. Look at old. What do I call this? The Fantasy Haus live studio? It's not even a studio. It's, I don't know, just like a scene. Whatever. Anyways, we're rolling with it. Anyways, so we're here. And it was, like I said, quite the interesting week. So without too much further ado, I'm going to show you guys just how week 7 kind of broke down. Let me go back. I'm trying to get some noties here. Damn, I thought I had this window set up. It is okay. Okay. Shall we? Okay, so starting with our first matchup of week 7. Well, I guess we'll call it our first matchup. We had the newly renamed from Massage Watson to All Hail the Sun God taking on Bob's Burgers. And All Hail the Sun God kind of ran away with this one by a score of 125-67. So really, unfortunately, wasn't too much competition there. Also, I just realized that all of the winners are on the left side. So that wasn't intentional, but that's just apparently how it played out in the graphic. Whatever, we're just rolling with it. Anywho, in our next matchup, we had the Desert Swarm continuing their dominance, picking up a huge win. It was a little bit more of a narrow margin of victory this time around, but still, they got one of the higher score lines of the week, 142, and higher score lines of the week by a score of 142-136 with a victory over the Young Guns. Then in our third matchup, we had good old Team Ditka picking up, being able to pick up the win against CD's Nuts, with Team Ditka getting a score of 174 and CD's Nuts to 104. Moving right along, we had Better on Paper, unfortunately picking up another L this week, as they are unfortunately the last person, or the, what should I say, do I want to say like the dumpster fire of the league, or one of the dumpster fires of the league, because, you know, that's technically what they are, but unfortunately they did lose to one of the top dogs, DM's family, by a score of 102-97. So that one was actually much more closer than I think a lot of people were thinking. Moving right along into the what's this, fifth matchup? Yeah, fifth matchup, with Team Nugent picking up a win over the reigning and defending Hooligan House Fantasy Football League champion, Kelsey Me Softly, by a score of 100-91. And then, finally, in our last game of the week and closest game of the week, we had Peanut Oil, renamed from Destino, but now Peanut Oil once again, because they have that wonderful profile picture. Oh my god. Hey man, Juice Robinson, crazy. Anyways, picking up that win against BJJ's by a score, like I said, of score of 118-116. Now, that is not just how we do things here. We're going to go into and kind of take a look at how all of these broke down. Alright. There we go. Scoot this on over. Perfect. I'll move this so you can clearly see everything. Well, almost. Alright, perfect. Cool. And then we switch. So now we'll take a deeper dive into how all of this stuff broke down for this matchup. This is the wrong group of settings. Drop this one. We need, here it is. Okay. Boom. In our classic break it down. So. Lol. I put it in the same thing. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Bam. Act like this is, we know what we're doing. Okay. So, starting off at the top, we have our two QBs. Starting off with All Hail the Sun God, who had Matthew Stafford this time, getting 16 points this week in the loss to Pittsburgh, which I don't think anyone saw that happening. While Jared Goff, on the other hand, also, this was another loss I don't think anyone saw coming, was Jared Goff and Detroit losing against the Ravens. Jared Goff only able to get 12 points in this matchup. If we move into the running backs, Austin Eckler, and I believe this was his first game back, only able to muster up about 5 points in that loss to Kansas City. While DeAndre Swift, who continues once again to have an awesome season. He's a part of that. I know he's a part of that awesome Eagles squad, but able to get 10 points in that big win over Miami, which I think a lot of people saw that as a Super Bowl preview. Shit, I'm one of those people. I thought that could be a possible Super Bowl preview. It just depends on how the rest of the season plays out. Now, we move into the next set of running backs. We'll keep it on this side with Bob's Burgers, who had Tyler Allgeier able to get 14 points this week, as I think Bijan Robinson went out with just a mysterious illness. I don't remember exactly. I know on the day of they didn't actually say what the problem was. I didn't actually do any follow-up to see what actually his ailment was, but during that time he was knocked out, or was out of the game. So Tyler Allgeier took a majority of the snaps and put them to good use. Like I said, put up 14 points in that win over Tampa. If we switch over to the All Hail the Sun God, we had Jaylen Warren, who able to get 10 points this week, even though technically did, I think he was outpaced by Najee Harris in this one. Also, Najee, I think, also went off for just a little bit higher of a score percentage this time, 15 points, but still that whole kind of backfield there in Pittsburgh is an interesting situation to be, unfortunately, covering on both sides, but you got to do what you got to do. And he at least mustered up a pretty decent 10 points, considering, like you can see, Eckler only got 5 points. He is one of the better backs in the league. Now, if we move into the running backs, we'll just stick with All Hail the Sun God, with the aforementioned Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown, able to get 23 points despite losing to Baltimore. If we move over to Bob's Burgers, DJ Moore, only able to get 13 points this week in the win over Las Vegas. And if we stay with the second set of wide receivers here, we'll just stay with Bob's Burgers, who had Rondale Moore only able to get 6 points this week in the loss to Seattle, while Keenan Allen continuing to have a pretty decent season. This was his first down week where he had under 10 points, able to only get 9.5 in the loss to Kansas City. Now, if we move straight on into the tight ends, the big man there in Minnesota, who was technically knocked out of the game for like a few plays but did come back, Mr. TJ Hawkinson, able to get 19 points. Whereas for Bob's Burgers, Tyler Higbee only able to get 1 point in the loss to Pittsburgh. Now, moving into our defenses, the Lions put up a -7 points as the Ravens just blew them out. Whereas for All Hail the Sun God here, the Commanders, despite losing to the Giants, still able to get 8 points. So, hey, he'll take any points where he can get them. Then if we move into the kickers, out of nowhere, and if we stay with All Hail the Sun God, you can see Dustin Hopkins just had himself a day when, I forget how many kicks he made, but 22 points it equated to fantasy points wise, which is just huge considering the original kicker I had was on bye week. So awesome. That can't ask for more than that off a waiver wire pickup. Matt Gay for Bob's Burgers, only able to get, I should say, not only able to, but able to get 7 points in the loss to Cleveland. Cool. All right, we shall move into our next matchup, which was actually pretty close. It was between the Desert Swarm and the Young Guns. Take a little sip. All right. So, if we, as always, start at the top with our QBs. The Desert Swarm had Brock Purdy himself, able to get 15 points in the loss to Minnesota. Whereas the Young Guns, who had Mr. Patrick Mahomes, able to throw 38 points, just continuing to have an awesome season. Chiefs just, once again, looking to return themselves to almost that kind of Chief immortality that we know them as. Or know them for, I should say, not as. Anywho, if we move into the first set of running backs here, we'll stay with Young Guns, who had James Cook, able to get 19 points this week in a loss to New England. Once again, I don't think anyone saw this. I don't think anyone saw Buffalo losing to New England. But, man, this is some worrisome. Buffalo is dropping some games. Allen continuing to throw interceptions. Man, it's been an interesting situation because Buffalo was, I think, a lot of people's picks to go to the Super Bowl, if not win it all, for a lot of recent, the last few years. I keep getting tongue-tied this evening. But that seems to have changed as of this season, or in the last, maybe 2 seasons? But sheesh, crazy. On the opposite side, Desert Swarm here. Travis Etienne for Jacksonville continues to have an awesome day, or awesome season. 22 points for him this week in the win over New Orleans. If we stay with the Desert Swarm, who had A.J. Dillon this week, who actually looked pretty damn good. I think A.J. Dillon took a majority of the snaps this week, put him to good use, got 11 points, even though that was a game the Packers should have won. They definitely lost. And yeah, now everyone is, including myself as a Packer fan, kind of wondering what the hell is going on. Rainmaker! Freddie! What's good, Brohan? Oh, I was hoping the TTS was gonna say in Rainmaker, and I was kind of hoping for it. But we're not in the regular scene, so the TTS doesn't show up. But hey, thanks, brother. Thank you for the 14 months. And stop in. You are amazing, dude. How's your night been? Also, I don't know if I told you personally, but I fucking love your team name now. Peanut oil. It's so good. Where were we? We were talking about A.J. Dillon and him taking a majority of the snaps this week, able to get 15, not 15, that's not what that says. That says 11 points this week. Whereas for the Young Guns, Mr. Zach Moss, only able to get 7 points this week in the loss to Cleveland. Zach Moss kind of figuring to go back to his backup role as JT kind of looks to retake that number 1 spot back over there in Indy. Now, if we move into the wide receivers, let's keep it with the good old Young Guns. We had DK Metcalf. Did he even play this game? Or did he just legit get no catches? Oh, so he just missed out. Didn't switch him out. Interesting. Yeah, we're just spicing it up a bit. Hey, I like it. I like it. Although Destino was a goated name. If we look on the opposite side here, then for Desert Swarm, Tyreek continuing to have an amazing season. Able to get 25 points this week despite losing to Philadelphia. We'll stay with the Desert Swarm here, and Jacoby Myers in the second wide receiver spot, able to get 18 points in the loss to Chicago. While for the Young Guns, Scary Terry McLaurin able to get 15 points in the loss to the Giants. Moving right along into the tight ends, we'll stay with the Young Guns and Mark Andrews, who had himself a day destroying that Detroit defense with 22 points on the day and a win over Detroit. Thought about doing Guns N' Roses and have a pick of the Guns. Oh my god. Have like he could do one of like this, not like one of the silhouettes, but it's like one of their entrances. Have the Guns with like Jay with the title. Or the one with Cardblade and Juice. Oh my god. Hell yeah. Totally. If we look at Desert Swarm's tight end, who had Dallas Goedert, who is having an awesome season himself. I feel like I've been saying that for pretty much all these Philadelphia players. Able to get 18 points this week in the big win over Miami. If we move into the flex positions, we have Drake London able to get 11 points this week in the win over Tampa, while Christian Kirk able to get 19 points this week for the Young Guns in a huge win over New Orleans. Then if we shift into good old defenses, we'll stay with the Young Guns for this one. The Seahawks able to get 9 points in the win over Arizona, while the Giants only able to get, what am I talking about? They did great this week, surprisingly. Able to get 15 points in the win over the Commanders. And I know it's only the Commanders, so that's not really saying too much, but whatever. Moving on. Into the kickers. The Desert Swarm, while rolled with Anders Carlson this week, who only got 4 points in that depressing loss to Denver. While Jake Elliott over here for the Young Guns, able to get a pretty modest 7 points for the Eagles here. Able to get 7 points in the win over Miami. I don't know why that was so hard, but here we are. All right. Now, if we move into our third matchup, took me a while to change the Destino name. I mean, I don't blame you. It's iconic. Literally. I'm like, should I really do this? Like, is it is this really what I want to be doing? And then I'm just like, yes, this is exactly what I want to do. Drop that down. All right. So in our, then I saw that pick of juice, and you were like, peanut oil. You're like, yep, it's happening. We're gonna pawn it, and I'm gonna get another gold tooth. Lol. People are gonna be wondering, what the fuck are they talking about? Unless they are AEW fans. But anywho, if we move into our next matchup here, we have Team Dicka and CD's Nuts. We'll take a look at the two QBs here. Starting with Team Dicka, who had Baker Mayfield, wow. Had a sneeze. Why do you want to put me to sleep so much? I'm not even tired. All right. So we have Baker, who had 18 points this week in the loss to Atlanta. While for CD's Nuts here, Jalen Hurts able to get 26 points in the huge win over Miami. Staying with CD here and rolling into the first set of running backs, we have Aaron Jones, who still kind of working his way back from hamstring injury, which is unfortunate news for my work team, but we won't talk about that. Dumpster fire. Anyways, Aaron Jones able to get 8 points this week in that loss to Denver, while Jonathan Taylor just looked incredible, had himself a day, even though they did lose to Cleveland, and Myles Garrett will probably be the one that kind of overshadows that whole performance. But anyways, able to get 21 points in that loss. If we move into the next set of running backs, and we'll stay with Team Dicka here, Jerome Ford able to get 17 points in that win, that 1 point win over Indy. I think did he get knocked out early? Are you gonna tell me? Yeah. Okay, so he did get injured in game and taken out. But Jerome Ford able to get 17 points before that happened. For CD's Nuts here, Rashad White able to get a pretty modest 15 points in that loss to Atlanta. So love to see that production of the running backs. We move into the wide receivers, and we'll stay with CD here. And Devontae Adams getting 12 points in that loss to Chicago, while AJ Brown for Team Dicka had himself a day as well, able to get 29 points in the win over Miami. And we'll just stay with Team Dicka in his second wide receiver, who just, I don't think anyone thought that Minnesota was going to win this game against San Fran, but Jordan Addison showed out, had himself a couple touchdowns, able to get, or was it, how many touchdowns did he get? Was it 2, 3? I actually don't remember. 2 tuds, yeah. But 123 yards, so that's just incredible. Obviously, career highs for the rookie on the season. Able to get 31 points in that huge win over San Fran. While for CD's Nuts, Tutu Atwell able to get a modest 10 points in that loss to Pittsburgh. Now, if we move into the tight ends, we have Sam Laporta for Team Dicka, who's been killing it for Detroit this year. Able to get 11 points in that loss to Baltimore, while Giannu Smith kind of falling back to reality here a little bit with CD's Nuts, while only able to get 4 points this week, while he kind of falls back to earth because Kyle Pitts, who everyone remembers is on the Atlanta Falcons, except the Atlanta Falcons apparently just completely forgot that man was on their team until this week, last 2 weeks actually. Man's actually been doing decent. Other than that, Giannu Smith has been actually outpacing, which is crazy. But that'll probably change as teams tend to run with the hot hand. And if your hot hand is one of your star players, then there you go. It's what you want. Anywho, moving into the flexes. One of the pickups of probably the year so far. Dante Foreman able to pick up 33 points in a huge win over Las Vegas. I think it was 3 touchdowns. Oh, 2 touchdowns. Wait. So, was it actually 3? So, you had a receiving touchdown and 2 rushing touchdowns. So, yeah, it was 3 touchdowns. Okay. So, just, yeah, obviously, one of those dudes that I don't think a lot of people thought was going to happen. And just the game script just worked in his favor. Able to score 3 times. So, that's meant a lot of fantasy points. So, good for Team Ditka there. CD's nuts on the opposite side here had Michael Pittman Jr. slotted into that flex spot, able to get 16 points in that loss to Cleveland. Now, if we move into the defensive positions here, we have the Packers only able to get 1 point in that loss to Denver for CD, while Team Ditka had the Jags able to get 6 points in that win over New Orleans. Now, if we move into the kickers, we have Jake Moody able to get 6 points in that loss to Minnesota, while Justin Tucker able to get a pretty consistent 8 points in that win over Detroit. Cool. Moving right along into our next matchup, which is Team Better on Paper versus D. Adams Family. So starting off, as always, with our QBs, Lamar Jackson, able to get 37 points in that huge blowout win over Detroit. Just Lamar looking incredible, looking like his MVP form. The Adams family had Tua able to only get 12 points because they kind of got smothered in that Philly game. I know Tyreek had himself a tiny bit, but then apart from those slight little sparks of offense there really wasn't much. In the battle of the running backs, we'll stay with the Adams family here, who had Saquon Barkley able to get 18 points in that big win over the Washington Commanders, while on the opposite side here for Team Better on Paper, Isaiah Pacheco able to get 16 points in that win over the Chargers. Rolling into our next set of running backs, we'll just stay with Team Better on Paper here. Why do I keep seeing team in front of it? Just Either way, we have Gus Edwards able to get 21 points in that win over Detroit, while Ramondre Stevenson for the Adams family able to get 14 points in the win over Buffalo. So both running backs just see incredible production. Hell yeah, especially Gus Edwards. Moving into the first set of wide receivers, we have Gabe Davis. We have teammates going head to head. Gabe Davis only able to get 1 point this week in that loss to New England, while Stephon Diggs was one of the main beneficiaries, able to get 17 points in, like I said, that loss to New England. Moving into the next set of wide receivers, we'll go back to to Better on Paper with Darnell Mooney, who was able to get 7 points in the win over Vegas, while for D. Adams family and Devontae Smith, able to get 8 points in the win over the Dolphins. Moving straight on into the tight ends and Mr. good old D. Adams family, George Kittle, starting to catch some more balls out there and be a little bit more productive. Able to be getting 13 points this week. I know he came back down to earth at what it was like 2 this week after getting 2 touchdowns last week. Either way, George Kittle able to get 13 points in that loss to Minnesota, while unfortunately for Team Better on Paper, Cole Kmet got a goose egg in that Bears win over the Raiders. Moving into the flex spot, I am just staying with Better on Paper here. OBJ able to get 9 points in that win over Detroit, while Chris Godwin in the flex spot for D. Adams family able to get 12 points in the loss to Atlanta. Now if we move right on into the defenses, we'll just stay with the Adams family. The Steelers able to get 4 points in the win over the Rams, while for Better on Paper, the 49ers, I don't think anyone was expecting this, but get negative 3 points this week as they took the L against the Vikings. Then if we move into the kickers, we have Harrison Butker for Better on Paper able to get 7 points this week in a win over the Chargers, while Riley Patterson able to get no points in a loss to the Ravens. Alright, second to last matchup here is Team Nugent taking on the reigning and defending Kelsey Me Softly. I almost feel like he should rename his team name to the Swifties. Anyways, Team Nugent. We'll start with our QBs, good lord. And on the side of Team Nugent, who had Justin Herbert, only able to get 13 points this week in the loss to KC. While Team Swifty, Kelsey Me Softly, had Trevor Lawrence this week go off for a good 20 points in the big win over New Orleans. If we move into the running backs, Bijan Robinson for Kelsey Me Softly, unfortunately, did get, I think he took himself out of that game because he just wasn't feeling well. I don't know what the ailment was, but he was only able to get 3 points, not even 3 points, 0.03, oh my gosh. 0.3 of a point before being taken out, while Raheem Mostert, also kind of a lower day for him, only able to get 6 points in that loss to Philadelphia. Then if we take a look at the next set of running backs for Team Nugent, we'll start with, again, Kenneth Gainwell, able to get 7 points in that win over Miami, while Kenneth Walker III, able to get 13 points for Kelsey Me Softly in that win over Arizona. If we stay on with Kelsey Me Softly's team, but we look at the wide receivers, Calvin Ridley able to get 1 point this week in a win over New Orleans, while Mike Evans for Team Nugent able to get 20 points in the loss to Atlanta. Moving into the next set of wide receivers, we have Puka Nacua for Nuge here, able to get 23 points in the loss to Pittsburgh, while Brandon Ayuk able to get 10 points in the loss to Minnesota for Kelsey Me Softly. Now, next up is the tight ends. We'll stay with Kelsey Me Softly. Travis Kelce, who is pretty much the entirety of that KC offense, it feels like at the moment, able to get 35 points again this week in a pretty much a blowout win over the Chargers. While if you, on the other side here for Team Nuge here, Evan Engram for Jacksonville only able to get 9 points in the win over New Orleans. Now, in the flex spot, we have Jalen Waddle able to get 12 points in that loss to Philly. He did get knocked out for a little bit, seeking some attention for his back, but he did come back and finish the game, so that's good. Christian Watson for Kelsey Me Softly, having a down year, as all the entire Packer team is. We do not look good right now. So Christian Watson only get 5 points in that loss to Denver. And that's not saying that Jordan Love isn't targeting him. It's just Jordan's sometimes inaccurate and throws interceptions, and sometimes it's a lot of interceptions. So, that's fun him. But hey, here we go. It was bound to happen, right? If we move into the defenses here, we got the Bills, and we'll stay with Kelsey Me Softly and the Rams, who got 2 points despite the Rams losing to Pittsburgh. The Bills able to get 1 point in the loss to New England. Then finally, we move into, this man had a free agent kicker? Oh, he's a free agent now, but he wasn't when he, okay. I was going to be like, how the hell did this man have a free agent kicker and still get points? But, so Maher apparently had him for a little bit. He was able to get you 2 points, but apparently that man is no longer on the team, so, okay. For Team Nuge, able to get 7 points in that loss to KC. All right, and in our last one, boom, and as always, we start with our QBs. We have Peanut Oil taking on the BJJs. First up for Peanut Oil is Josh Allen, able to get 26 points despite losing to the Patriots. So just Allen throws up numbers, but he also does kind of sometimes give away the game, which is unfortunate. Kirk Cousins in prime time picking up the big win over the Niners, and also getting 24 points along. For the BJJs, if we stay with the BJJs and Kirk's teammate in Alex Madison, only able to get 6 points this week, even though they won against the Niners. For Peanut Oil, Josh Jacobs only able to get 5 points this week in the loss to Chicago. Then we have, if we move along into the next set of running backs, we have Peanut Oil. Or I should say we're gonna just stay with Peanut Oil and Alvin Kamara, able to get 29 points this week, despite losing to Jacksonville. But just an outstanding day for the man. On the opposite side here for the BJJs, Justice Hill, only able to get 5 points this week in a win over Detroit. It seemed like Gus Edwards was the hot hand that game, which just seems to be kind of how Baltimore's backfield is rolling around, with more of that committee approach, which I think a lot of us just kind of knew was going to happen after J.K. Dobbins went down. So some nights it's been Gus Edwards, sometimes it's been Justice Hill. It's just unfortunately hasn't been consistent. If we take a look into the first set of wide receivers, we'll stay with the JJs here. Chris Olave, who has recently been in the news for getting arrested for driving recklessly and then saying he plays for the Saints. Yeah, dude, Kamara was cooking, brother. Cooking. But before Mr. drives too fast, before that all went down during the game, he had 12 points in that loss to Jacksonville. On the opposite side for Peanut Oil here, Marquise Brown, who's actually having himself a pretty decent season despite the fact he has Josh Dobbs as his QB right now. Marquise Brown able to get 7 points in that loss to Seattle. Now if we take a look at the wide receivers, Mike Thomas able to get 13 points in that loss to Jacksonville for Peanut Oil, while for the JJs they had Tyler Lockett, who only was able to get 7 points this week in the win over Arizona. Now if we move into the tight ends, once again, we'll just stay with the JJs and Darren Waller, who finally had himself a game. It just feels like everyone was just like, okay, this is the game for Darren Waller. Okay, maybe this is the game for Darren. Okay, maybe this is the game. And it finally happened. He went off for 22 points this week in the win over the Commanders. While Dawson Knox, on the other hand, for the Peanut Oil here, only able to get 4 points in the loss to New England. If we move straight into the flex, we have Cooper Kupp able to get 6 points in the loss to Pittsburgh, while Christian McCaffrey, just insane season for the man, able to get 22 points in the loss to Minnesota. Now if we move right on into the defenses, we have the Browns for Peanut Oil here, able to get 12 points in that big win over Indy, while the Raiders only able to get 4 points for the BJJs, in that loss to Chicago. Then finally, in our match with the kickers, we have for the BJJs Mr. Blake Groupie, able to get 10 points in that loss to Jacksonville, while Younghoe Koo kicking another game winner, able to get 13 points in the win over Tampa. And that was only a 2-point victory there for Peanut Oil here, so it really came down to the wire. All right, now that brings us to our next point, our next little section here, which is the power rankings. I know we all love them, we all need them. Just kidding, we don't need them. But let me pull this up so I have some point of reference. And okay, this is the updated power rankings, and as you can see, there was no shift among the top 4, so you still have our top dogs all remaining the same. So congrats to D Adams family, who's sitting at our number 1 overall top dog with a record of 6-1. Then number 2 overall is going to be the Desert Swarm, locking it in at 5-2. Also at 5-2 is Team Nugent, who comes in at our number 3 overall top dog. So Desert Swarm, Team Nuge, and All Hail the Sun God all tied technically at 5-2 on the season, but I think this goes by most points for, if I remember correctly. So that is how this kind of breaks down. Anyways, we're gonna move into the rest of the middle of the pack, which there was a little bit more movement. Team Dicka finally. I shouldn't say finally. Team Dicka making the jump from number 7 to number 5 with a record of 4-3. Then now jumping up into the 6th spot from 8th last week was Peanut Oil, formerly Destino, also with a record of 4-3. Now dropping to 7th this week. From 5th is the defending champ in Kelsey Me Softly with a 3-4 record on the season. Then in the 8th spot is wait. Why do I have? Oh, well, this one thing is incorrect for CD, because CD did not go up. They went down. They were 6th last week, so I put the wrong arrow, so that's my bad. But CD's Nuts was 6th last week, and they are now 8th this week, so that should not be an up. That should totally be a down. But anyways, they have also a 3-4 record on the season. I was like, whoa, that confused the shit out of me. Now if we move on over into the 9th spot, that also did not change. Young Guns kind of sitting there with a record of... Did I not update the record? 2-5. Oh my god. Let this be a note to check your work, yo. Shit, we were trying to get this done so we could go live, but let me double check on that record. That's unfortunate. My bad. I didn't realize I missed that. Yeah, let's see. Young Guns. Yep, 2-5. Okay, so they are 2-5 on the record on the good old season. And then coming in at number 10 this week is the BJJs, who actually hopped up and got themselves out of the dumpster fires, able to get himself to a record of 2-5. Then, unfortunately, we get into the dumpster fires where Bob's Burgers has fallen both in record and to the new 11th position. They were in 10th, now 11th, also with a record of 2-5. And then lastly, with no movement, in dead last is Better on Paper with a record of 1-6 on the season. All right. Now, it brings us to our kind of last sort of section, which is the good old Week 8 preview. All right, so the games for Week 8 are shaping up to look like this. First up, in game number 1, we have All Hail the Sun God taking on the Young Guns. All Hail the Sun God sitting at a record of 5-2, and Young Guns sitting at an inverse of that at 2-5 on the season. In our second matchup, we have Team Ditka with a record of 4-3 taking on Bob's Burgers with a record of 2-5. In our third matchup, it sees CD Nuts. Oh, that was kind of a weird tongue twister. Anyways, our third matchup sees CD's Nuts with a record of 3-4 on the season, taking on the dead stinking last Better on Paper with a record of 1-6. Next up, we have D Adams Family taking on with a record of 6-1 and our number 1 overall top dog, taking on Team Nuge, or I believe that's 3rd overall top dog. So that'll be a hot matchup to look for. D Adams Family 6-1 on the season, Team Nuge 5-2 on the season. Then in our second to last matchup here, we have the reigning and defending champion in Kelsey Me Softly, who has kind of been having a bit of a down season this year. 3-4 on the record, taking on Peanut Oil with a record of 4-3, the inverse of Kelsey Me Softly. And in our final matchup of the week, we have the Desert Swarm, our number 2 overall top dog, taking on the BJJs. Desert Swarm sitting at a 5-2 record, while the BJJs sitting at 2-5 on the season. Now, just like we always do, we're going to take a little look into kind of like how these are shaping up. We're going to kind of take a picks on which player we think may perform better. So we'll scroll this down. Hopefully we can see everyone. All right. So let's get to it. Break it down. Nice. Okay. So starting at the top, and this is for our first matchup, which is, like I said, All Hail the Sun God versus Young Guns. And starting at the top here with our QBs, we have Patty Mahomes and KC taking on Denver versus CJ Stroud and Houston taking on Carolina. Ooh, both these are very favorable matchups for both these quarterbacks. But I don't think you can really choose against Patrick Mahomes. The man just dropped like almost 40 points. Denver is terrible. So is Carolina. But I mean, it's Patty Mahomes in the Chiefs offense. So Mahomes. If we move into the running backs, we have James Cook in Buffalo taking on Tampa versus Austin Eckler, and the Chargers taking on Chicago. Matchup-wise, signs would point to Eckler. We just hope that he is healthy and kind of remains healthy. Like I said, he only had like 5 points last week, so this is against a Chicago team that's been fucking terrible all season. So hopefully Eckler can carve him up, but I wouldn't be surprised if James Conner does have himself a pretty damn good day. I will say that Tampa is a pretty formidable run defense team, so we'll see. But if I had to guess, I'd say based on the matchup that Eckler would have the better day. If we move into the next set of running backs, we'll just stay with All Hail the Sun God here. Kareem Hunt and Cleveland taking on Seattle versus Zach Moss and Indy taking on New Orleans. Ooh. I think assuming both these running backs are healthy or will be healthy and good to go, I would say Kareem Hunt will have the bigger day, purely based off the fact that I think Jerome Ford actually got injured, so he has an ankle injury and will be out. So Kareem Hunt will be the kind of featured back. Seattle's defense is kind of, I would say, middle of the field a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kareem Hunt not that he's going to have like a career day or anything, but I expect him to have pretty decent numbers. Zach Moss with JT fully back and cooking. I don't expect Zach Moss's numbers to be too high. If we move into the wide receivers, we have T. Higgins and Cincy taking on San Fran versus Amon-Ra and Detroit taking on the Raiders. I'm going to have to go with Amon-Ra on this one. Again, just looking at the matchup, the Raiders are worse than San Fran. Cincy, hopefully they're kind of back to their old ways, but we'll see. T. Higgins was a huge part of them going to the playoffs. But Amon-Ra just killing it with these new Detroit Lions. If we go into the next wide receiver matchup here, we have Keenan Allen and the Chargers taking on Chicago versus Scary Terry in Washington taking on Philly. Once again, I feel like all these are all based on the matchup. So it's roll with Keenan Allen. He's having a phenomenal season. Chargers offense has been kind of down, but as far as Keenan Allen goes, he's been killing it. They're also playing the Bears, which I picked on before for being bad, so for the same reason, picking them on again. If we move into the tight ends, we have TJ Hawkinson and Minnesota taking on Green Bay versus Mark Andrews and Baltimore taking on Arizona. Ooh. Mark Andrews. I do expect TJ Hawkinson to have some decent numbers. I just think Mark Andrews is the better tight end, and I think the matchup speaks more to Mark Andrews than it does Hawkinson. I just think that Minnesota and Green Bay are two mid teams going at it, and it's just gonna be the battle of mid for that one. If we move into the flex spots here, we got Christian Kirk and Jacksonville versus Pittsburgh, while they have Zay Flowers and Baltimore taking on Arizona. My gut's telling me to go with Zay Flowers on this one because it's, Arizona, they're kind of all right, but because of also how much Zay has been worked into that Baltimore Ravens offense, especially with how much Lamar has been finding him, I definitely like the matchup here. But the opposite side, I also like the matchup here with Jacksonville going up against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's defense is actually really good, especially with TJ Watt just messing stuff up with the line. So I wouldn't be surprised if Christian Kirk just had himself a game, but something tells me that the consistency of Zay Flowers is really going to pay off here, and I just think that Zay Flowers, based on that matchup, is probably going to have a better day. If we go into the defenses, we have Seattle taking on Cleveland versus the Dolphins taking on England. What's the Cleveland offense? Miami does have one of the teams that does have one of the most sacks, but they do kind of play a little bit more soft coverage. Seattle, middle of the road there. Versus an interesting state of the Cleveland offense. Honestly, I could see both of these defenses kind of producing the same amount. But if I had to, man, it's hard to tell. I think I might roll Dolphins just because I don't really believe in Mac Jones as much as Deshaun Watson and even Dorian Thompson, the backup for Cleveland, even seem to be just cooking just fine. So, and they have Kareem Hunt to lean on too. So, if we go into the kickers, we have Jake Elliott and that's not Washington. Jake Elliott and Jake Elliott and Philly taking on Washington versus Brandon Aubrey and Dallas taking on the Rams. I would probably expect that Aubrey would have the better day just because there's more of a chance that the Rams could stop Dallas's offense and force them to kick a field goal, whereas I think Philadelphia's offense is so good compared to the Washington's defense that they could be one of those games where Eagles drive down and score like every drive. I mean, could be wrong too, but if I had to guess, I'd say that the Dallas and Rams game seems a little bit more even. But I would go for Brandon Aubrey on this one. Right. Moving into matchup 2, Bob's Burgers and Team Ditko. All right. Starting off with, once again, the QBs. Jared Goff of Detroit taking on Vegas versus Baker. Tampa taking on Buffalo. I am going to roll with Jared Goff on this one, which kind of is weird to be saying so consistently nowadays, but he's been pretty damn good. Raiders are a middle-of-the-pack defense here, but these new Detroit Lions are just insane. They're one of the best teams in the league. Baker, I do like you, but Tampa is kind of all right, but that Buffalo defense compared, I think the Buffalo defense is a bit better. I think it's definitely going to wreak a little bit of havoc with Tampa, so we'll see. But I think if it came down to it, I think Goff would have the better day. Now, if we move into the running backs, we have DeAndre Swift in Philly taking on Washington versus JT in Indy taking on New Orleans. I think JT's actually going to have the better day. He killed it last week. There's no reason why he wouldn't. I know New Orleans is a bit better of a defense, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. DeAndre Swift, I do expect him to have a good day. Washington does have a good defensive front, but their defense as a whole is kind of so we'll see, but I do expect DeAndre Swift to also have himself a good day. If we move into the next set of running backs, we have Tyler Allgeier and Atlanta taking on Tennessee versus Jerome Ford and Cleveland taking on Seattle. Well, Jerome Ford is listed as doubtful, and I think he's already been ruled out as possibly even needing ankle surgery, so this one's got to go straight to Tyler Allgeier. If we move into wide receivers, we have DJ Moore in Chicago taking on the Chargers versus AJ Brown and Philly taking on Washington. AJ Brown, I kind of like in this one more than I do DJ Moore, just because it's kind of a consistency thing. AJ Brown, even though DJ Moore is an insanely talented wide receiver, he's still on the Bears and he still has Justin Fields throwing to him, whereas Philly is in much better shape. So even though the matchup for Chicago might be a little bit more juicy with the Chargers being on kind of on the down year, whereas the Commanders are, I would say, a bit worse than the Chargers right now. Well, not a bit, but a little bit worse than the Chargers are right now. So the potential for A.J. Brown to have a better game is definitely there. If we move into the next set of wide receivers, we have Rondell Moore in Arizona taking on Baltimore versus Jordan Addison in Minnesota taking on Green Bay. Jordan Addison had himself a wonderful week last week. Rondell Moore, more of kind of a secondary tool player there in Arizona. Gonna have to roll with Jordan Addison in this one, unfortunately. We'll see. I know he's been pretty much the number one wide receiver there in Minnesota, apart from T.J. Hockenson. But he had a good game last week. I expect him to produce maybe a little bit again this week, unless he gets. I mean, Packers don't really shadow anyone; they play a lot of zone. But I just don't see, and especially with Arizona taking on that Baltimore defense, I would see Rondell Moore having too good of a day. If we move into the tight ends, we got Tyler Higbee in the Rams taking on Dallas versus Sam Laporta, Detroit taking on the Raiders. Got to go with the Raiders just based on the matchup. And also, yeah, based on the matchup 100%, because the Rams are also taking on Dallas, which is going to be pretty difficult. In the flex spot, we have Dante Foreman in Chicago taking on the Chargers versus David Njoku in Cleveland taking on Seattle. If Dante Foreman sees any remote usage like he did last week, I think we'll see the Chargers. I think we'll see Dante Foreman having the better day than David Njoku. If we take a look at the defenses, we have the Jaguars taking on Pittsburgh versus the Lions taking on the Raiders. I think the Raiders even have a backup QB yet, so that Lions defense is probably going to do pretty damn good. Whereas it's more of a more of a even match with more of an even match with Jacksonville and Pittsburgh. Then if we take a look at the kickers, we have Matt Gay in Indy taking on New Orleans versus Jake Moody in San Fran taking on Cincy. Oh yeah, and I think, you know what? I think I'm gonna go with Jake Moody on this one. Decent kicker on a good team. They won't have Brock Purdy. I'm pretty sure he's in the concussion protocol, so they will have a backup. But that team is just so good that I think that they'll be able to at least get him within field goal range. All right, let's move into our next matchup, which was CD's Nuts versus Better on Paper. First up, we got Jalen Hurts in Philly taking on Washington versus Lamar Jackson in Baltimore taking on Arizona. Oh my. Oh my, oh my. If I'm gonna go with Lamar on this one. I think Arizona's defense is worse than Washington's, and if I was just going off the matchup, I think that's what I would pick it. If we move into the first set of running backs, we have Aaron Jones and Green Bay taking on Minnesota versus Isaiah Pacheco and KC taking on Denver. As much as I love Aaron Jones, I gotta roll with Pacheco on this one. KC just looks too damn good, and Denver sucks right now. So Pacheco's probably that whole KC team, I feel like, is just gonna feast. Aaron Jones is also working his way back yet from a hamstring injury that he suffered week 1. In the running back 2 situation, we have Gus Edwards and Baltimore taking on Arizona versus Rachaad White and Tampa taking on Buffalo. Gus Edwards did have himself a good day last week, or had an awesome week last week. But do I like Rachaad White and Tampa taking on Buffalo? I do, because Buffalo's defense has also been weakened due to injuries. But, I'm gonna guess that Baltimore's still gonna be doing the running back by committee thing, so I'm gonna guess Rachaad White is gonna have the better day, but not by much. In the wide receiver 1 spot, we have Devontae Adams in Las Vegas taking on Detroit versus Gabe Davis in Buffalo taking on Tampa. If Devontae didn't have Brian fucking Hoyer throwing to him, well, they are going against Detroit, so definitely not Devontae. So we'll have to immediately go Gabe. Even though with It really depends what version of Josh Allen comes out there. Is it going to be the one that throws a bunch of picks, or is it going to be the one that's possibly looking like an MVP sometimes, you know? But maybe not this season, but still. He can sling it. Sometimes he looks really on there. But then there's other days where you're just like, bro, how? But anyways, if we move into the next set of wide receivers, we have Darnell Mooney in Chicago taking on the Chargers versus CD Lamb and Dallas taking on the Rams. This one's pretty even, actually. But if I had to guess, probably CD's going to have the better day. Darnell Mooney kind of feels like he doesn't get hit too much. Yeah, why did I say that this would be close? No, it's not. Darnell Mooney is barely even targeted, especially with DJ Moore out there, and the fact that Fields barely have a good day. But either way, CD Lamb will have a better day, even if the Rams would be a hard defense. I still feel like CD is a good enough wide receiver to actually get something modest. Moving into the tight ends, we have Dalton Schultz in Houston taking on Carolina versus Cole Kmet in Chicago taking on the Chargers. I think Dalton Schultz will have the better week. Houston is actually showing that they are a pretty damn decent team. Carolina, on the other hand, fucking stinks. CJ Stroud is slanging that thing, and Dalton Schultz is actually damn good tight end, so I expect to have a good week. In the flex spot, we have Michael Pittman Jr. in Indy taking on New Orleans versus OBJ in Baltimore taking on Arizona. I'm going to go with Michael Pittman Jr. having the better day, even though New Orleans defense, especially their secondary, is lethal, but I don't think OBJ gets a ton of targets. I mean, he's still in effective part of their offense, but it's not like he's getting the monster games every week, you know. It feels like it's been pretty inconsistent points for him this season. If we move into the defenses, we have the Niners taking on Cincy versus the Cowboys taking on the Rams. Ooh. I think I might go with the Niners on this one, just because I don't know. I'm not sold on the Cowboys offense being good, and I'm also not really sold on the Rams defense being that great either. But I'm also not sold on the Bengals being 100% back. So I think Niners might pick off Joe Burrow, although I could be completely wrong, and the Cowboys just slaughter the Rams and pick off Stafford, because that could happen too. Who is the worst line right now? Maybe the Rams have the worst line, like O-line. Anywho, we move into the kickers. We have Justin Tucker in Baltimore taking on Arizona versus Harrison Butker and KC taking on Denver. Who do I think is going to have the chance to... I think Tucker might actually have the chance to actually have the better day. I just think Casey's too powerful, and it'll be kind of one of those situations I talked about before, where just kicking extra points isn't gonna, even though it is good, it doesn't help you like super fantasy wise. Whereas Justin Tucker, I feel like the Cardinals defense could maybe surprise Lamar in that offense and maybe force Tucker to kick some longer field goals, but we'll see. All right, moving right along into DM's family versus Team Nuge. Starting off the top, we got Tua and Miami taking on New England versus Justin Herbert and the Chargers taking on Chicago. If I was to, part of me wants to pick on Chicago again, but the thing is I could almost see Chicago playing upset to the Chargers, so I'm going to go with Tua on this one. Although historically have seen Miami get upset by New England before, so who knows. If we move into the running backs, we have Saquon Barkley and the Giants taking on the Jets versus Jahmyr Gibbs and Detroit taking on the Raiders. I believe Jahmyr Gibbs is set to take a majority of the snaps again. Oh, Montgomery's sidelined with an injury. Versus, got to go with Gibbs on this one. It'll be a first start. Raiders defense is all right. Barkley, on the other hand, is going to be going against the Jets defense, which isn't really a joke. And Giants are, haha, anyways, moving into running back 2. We have Raheem Mostert in Miami taking on New England versus Rahamondre Stevenson in New England taking on Miami. I think Rahamondre Stevenson will have the better day. Miami sometimes I feel like plays a little bit more soft, which could play into New England's favor a bit. So we'll see. Moving to wide receivers, we have Stephon Diggs and Buffalo taking on Tampa versus Jalen Waddle, and Miami taking on New England. If I had to go purely based off of, I guess it doesn't matter. I think Stephon will have the better day. I know Jalen, there's definitely a lot of potential for Jalen to just go off, but I feel like just the way things have been playing out, it's just going to be the Tyreek Hill and Tua show as they run all over New England. So on that hand, I think Stephon Diggs is going to be the dude that gets more points because Josh is still throwing to him and they are still slanging the damn thing. So moving into wide receivers 2, we have Devontae Smith and Philly taking on Washington versus Puka Nacua and the Rams taking on Dallas. Gotta go with Devontae Smith just because it's a matchup thing. Dallas defense pretty damn good. Rams offense getting better, but I think that Philly offense is just way too potent to take way too potent for Washington. Moving into the tight ends, we have George Kittle and San Fran taking on Cincy versus Evan Ingram and Jacksonville taking on Pitt. I'm going to go on a limb and say Evan Ingram's going to have the better day. I like George Kittle, and he's pretty consistent, but if Debo might be out, but I still feel like it's just the Christian McCaffrey show. Whereas Evan Ingram, I feel like definitely has a chance to catch a touchdown or two in the red zone. If we move into the flex spot, we have Nico Collins able to get, and Houston taking on Carolina versus Jamar Chase and Cincy taking on San Fran. Probably gonna go with Nico Collins on this one. Just potent Houston offense versus a not very good Carolina defense or team in general. Moving to the defenses, we have the Steelers taking on Pittsburgh versus the Bills taking on Tampa. Let's go Bills, I guess. Although I do expect TJ Watt to wreak some havoc on that Jacksonville front line. Then in our last matchup, we have the kickers, which is Riley Patterson of Detroit taking on Las Vegas versus Cameron Dicker and the Chargers taking on Chicago. Ooh, I actually like Cameron Dicker in this one. Definitely see some stalls happening in that Chargers and Chicago game where it's just going to force Cameron to kick. Whereas Detroit, I think, might have a bit of an easier time with the Raiders. Okay, and in our second last matchup here, we got Kelsey Me Softly versus Peanut Oil. First up is Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville taking on Pitt versus Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville taking on Pitt versus Josh Allen and Buffalo taking on Tampa. I think Josh Allen taking on Tampa is going to have bigger numbers. I think Jacksonville and Pittsburgh are pretty evenly matched. Does it say what Bijan's thing was? Headaches. Anyways, RB1, we have Bijan Robinson and Atlanta taking on Tennessee versus Josh Jacobs and Las Vegas taking on Detroit. Gotta go with Bijan on this one. Tennessee is not that great this year. And the superstar Bijan, I think he's just going to have himself a day. Moving into the next set of running backs, we have Kenneth Walker in Seattle taking on Cleveland versus Alvin Kamara. New Orleans taking on Indy. I'm going to roll with Alvin Kamara on this one. Alvin Kamara had an awesome game last week. Indy, another one of those defenses, is kind of mid, so I expect Alvin to have a good game, whereas Cleveland is one of the top defenses in the league. So I think Kenneth might find it might be a little bit more tough sledding. In the wide receiver 1 matchups, we have Marquise Brown in Arizona taking on Baltimore versus Calvin Ridley in Jacksonville taking on Pitt. Guess I'll go with Calvin Ridley on this one. Just because Pitt's defense is, I mean, it's good, but I don't know. So is Jacksonville's offense. We'll see. Anywho, next set of wide receivers, we have Brandon Ayuk and San Fran taking on Cincy versus Mike T, and New Orleans taking on Indy. Ayuk is the #1 wide receiver out there. Debo's injured. I think I'm going to go with Ayuk on this one, although Michael Thomas will probably get some balls thrown his way. Ooh, actually, if Olave is out, which it probably will be, maybe I'll switch my vote to Mike Thomas if he has to be the #1. If we look at tight ends, let's see. Oh yeah, tight end. Sorry. Travis Kelce and KC taking on Denver versus Tyler Conklin and the Jets taking on the Giants. Gotta go Travis Kelce. Dudes, the whole Chiefs team is just cooking right now, dudes. I don't think it's going to stop with Denver. Moving on to the flex spots, we have Adam Thielen in Carolina taking on Houston versus Cooper Kupp, and the Rams taking on Dallas. Ooh. Adam Thielen has been actually producing there in Carolina. Cooper Kupp doing awesome in his way back from injury, but he is dealing with Dallas. So I think I'm going to roll with Adam Thielen on this one. If we take a look into the defenses, we have the Chiefs and KC taking on Denver versus the Browns taking on Seattle. I think the Chiefs will have the better day taking on Denver. If we move into the kickers, we have Kaimi Fairbairn in Houston taking on Carolina versus Younghoe Koo in Atlanta taking on Tennessee. I'm going to go with Younghoe Koo on this one. Once again, just the man's been having himself a season. He had a game winner last week. I don't think it'll be another game winner this week, but I expect Younghoe Koo to do us a solid. All right. Now into our fifth matchup, fifth and final matchup of the week. So it is the BJJs taking on the Desert Swarm. So we got Kirko, Coles, Cash, Cousins in Minnesota taking on Green Bay versus Tyson Bagent in Chicago taking on the Chargers. Ooh. Bagent actually showed that he could ball a little bit, getting the win last week. Kirk Cousins taking on Green Bay. Man, this one's hard to say. But I think I'm going to roll with Kirk, Coles, Cash, Cousins on this one. Just not sold on that Chicago team, especially with the backup QB. If we move into the running backs, we have San Fran and Christian McCaffrey taking on Cincy versus Tony Pollard in Dallas taking on the Rams. I'm not going to go against CMC. He's just absolute dog of a season right now. If we move to the next running backs, we have Dameon Pierce and Houston taking on Carolina versus Travis Etienne and Jacksonville taking on Pittsburgh. Dameon Pierce is good. I expect him to have a damn good season, but I don't think he's going to outproduce Travis Etienne Jr. He's just too damn good, and I think Pittsburgh, even though they do have a good defensive, just good defense in general, I think Travis Etienne will break it, and he'll have himself a day. Moving into the wide receiver matchup, we have Chris Olave. He's even going to fucking play. Anyways, in New Orleans versus Indy, taking on Tyreek Hill and Miami, going against the New Orleans. Or New England, good lord. Well, you gotta go Tyreek. I was gonna say if he plays, but hopefully Tyreek will play. But if he does, give him the edge. In wide receiver 2 matchup, we have George Pickens in Pittsburgh taking on Jacksonville versus Jacoby Myers in Vegas taking on Detroit. Gotta go George Pickens on this one. Looks like he has a good repertoire with Kenny Pickett connecting on some deep balls, while Jacoby Myers also showing that he has some repertoire with, Jimmy G when he's in. But taking on that Detroit defense also is going to be good. In the tight end matchup, we have Darren Waller and the Giants taking on the Jets versus Dallas Goedert and the Eagles taking on Washington. I think, yeah, that Jets defense too good, so we're going to roll Dallas Goedert against Washington, just because that's the matchup, or that is a more appetizing matchup than the Giants taking on what is a pretty formidable Jets defense. Then in the flex spot, we got Alexander Madison and Minnesota taking on Green Bay versus Drake London and Atlanta taking on Tennessee. I'm going to go Drake London on this one. Not sold on Tennessee this year. Also not sold on Alexander Madison at all as a player, but I think Drake London will have the better day. In the defenses, we have the Falcons taking on Tennessee versus the Rams taking on Arizona. I think the Ravens will have the better day. I think they're a better defense this year, and I think Arizona, their offense is a little. I mean, they're still winning some games, but I just don't think they're better than the Ravens defense. Then finally, in our kickers, or for our kickers, we got Blake Grupe in New Orleans taking on Indianapolis versus Anders Carlson in Green Bay taking on Minnesota. I'm gonna roll with Blake Grupe on this one. He's been looking pretty damn good for New Orleans. He had 10 points last week. I think it's going to be a pretty evenly matched New Orleans versus Indy there. Anders Carlson, I think he's just kind of a product of, he's just stuck on that Green Bay team, which sometimes it's balling out, sometimes it just fucking sucks. And unfortunately, these last few weeks, it's fucking sucked. And if that's how it's going to be against a Minnesota defense that's been actually kind of on the rise, it's going to be tough slugging for the entire team in general, which means Anders Carlson included. All right. So that kind of brings us to the last part here. So I think we're going to do one more thing, which is we're going to go to NFL.com and make our picks for next week. So for the week 8 games. I was about to be like, there's 2 Thursday night games? No, I'm just dumb. Why do they not show up all nice? Why do they gotta show up all awkward? I was hoping they'd all show up like nice, but what if we just schedule? Wow, here we go. This is the one we want. I was just doing this. Gotta get it nice and perfect. Okay, so we got Thursday all the way through. Give me my snipping tool, please. Okay. Snag our picks. And then we'll switch this. Can I really not see? Lol, that's funny. There it is. Why can't it be seen? What is going on here? Okay, fuck it. Boom, we'll do this display capture. Note to self. Stop screwing around with the other ones. Appears to not be working. Okay. So, we'll start with our green little marker here. So we got the Buccaneers taking on the Bills. Give me the Bills. can I do? Is it better if I go like a square? No, fuck it, we're just gonna go back with our circle. Okay, next one we got Panther. The Panthers haven't won a game. Oh, poor Texans are gonna feast on that shit. Rams, Dallas. I think Cowboys get it. Minnesota versus Packers. Oh god, we're 2-4. That's so sad. I'm a homer, but I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna say Packers upset Vikings. Colts, Saints. With Minshew Mania. Saints defense. I think the Saints will win. Dolphins versus Patriots. Give me Dolphins. Giants and Jets. Give me the Jets. Jags and Steelers. Give me the Jags. Falcons and Titans. Give me the Falcons. Eagles and Commanders. Give me the Eagles. Browns and Seahawks. Ooh, this will be a good one. Give me the Browns in this one. Ravens, Cardinals, Ravens. Chiefs, Broncos, definitely the Chiefs. Bengals, Niners. I'm gonna go Niners. Bears, Chargers. Chargers. And then Raiders, Lions. Lions. Boom. All right. There we go. We've done it. What is that? Week. Desktop. This is what week? Week 8. Yeah, week 8. Week 8 picks. Oh. All right. Boom. Well, my hooligans, we've done it. Another episode has come and gone. We've done it. We went over the week 7 review and covered all of the action in every game that happened. And we did a breakdown of each, or I should say we did kind of like a deeper dive into each game as well. Then we went over the updated power rankings and saw that there was a little bit movement amongst the middle of the pack and not amongst our top dog. Then we proceeded into the week 8 preview and got a look at what all of next week's games are shaping up. And then, as a little cherry on top, as we've been doing this season, we've been pulling up the picks for the NFL week. We've been making picks and just kind of choosing to see, how we do. Last week, we did not do so hot. I think we went like 3-10. We're hoping for redemption this week. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in and hanging out. For you guys in stream, I'm probably going to be ending here in a bit because it is getting close to 2 in the morning. So yeah, I appreciate you guys vibing for a bit. If you guys are watching on YouTube, I also want to say thank you guys for tuning in and hanging out for the end of this video. If you guys liked what you saw and like all of these videos, please feel free to smash that subscribe button. Additionally, you can leave me a comment down below, or you can also share the video to let all of the homies know what you think. Or hey, you can just be like, hey, this guy sucks. Whatever works for me. All the metrics matter. Anyways, you guys are fucking wonderful. Love the shit out of you guys. Thanks for hanging out just for a tiny bit. And I will see you next time. Peace out. Stay safe. Much love. I'll see you later. Bye.